What is the Buccaneers schedule going to look like? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Plenty of excitement around the schedule release happening Wednesday night, and we're going to talk a lot about it. But let's start with what we know so far and what fans might be able to expect when the announcement comes down. So, because the Bucs won the division last year, they have to play a first place schedule. Their opponents for 2025 are at home: the Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Eagles, Niners, Patriots, Jets, and Cardinals. On the road, it's the Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Rams, Seahawks, Dolphins, Bills, Lions, and Texans. They had a few teams on their schedule that could have opened the door for them to play overseas, but that schedule was released Tuesday morning, and the Bucs will not be traveling as part of the international series. We also know that they won't be facing the Eagles in week one because A, the Bucs host the Eagles and the defending champion always opens at home, and B, it was announced that the Eagles are hosting the Cowboys to kick off the season from the department of I saw that coming a mile away. But what else do we know? We know the Eagles and Packers face off in week 10 on Monday night. The Bears and Eagles play on the Black Friday game, and the Eagles will travel to play the Commanders the Saturday before Christmas. Then the Bucs will not be playing Christmas night because that game is already locked in between the Chiefs and the Broncos. Other Buccaneers opponents that have been decided: the Jets are playing the Broncos in week 6. The Rams take on the Jags in week 7. The Falcons take on the Colts in week 10. And the Dolphins take on the Commanders in week 11. Then there's the potential news coming from radio personality Pat Donovan, who said that one of his trusted sources said that the Bucs will be playing the Rams on Thanksgiving night in week 13. That would be a road game for the Bucs in just their second Thanksgiving Day game in franchise history. Their first one was a blowout loss to the Cowboys. I remember it vividly. That was not a good time for me. But that would also eliminate the Lions as their week 13 opponent. The Bucs are going to travel 18,477 miles this season, and their opponents in 2025 had a combined winning percentage of .491 in 2024. That makes the Bucs schedule the 19th ranked in terms of difficulty. Now, you can also take that with a giant grain of salt because these teams are all going to be different compared to last year. The Panthers made vast improvements over last year. The Falcons, we're not sure who they are outside of having a really, really tough defense. The Eagles got better. The Lions are one of the best teams in the league, but they lost half their coaching staff. So what are they going to look like? The Seahawks are going to be an interesting team that's kind of in transition. And then a lot of people have the Rams ahead of the Bucs right now. I don't, but some do in terms of who the best teams in the NFC are going to be. And then, the Bills are going to be the Bills. The Cardinals are kind of, whatever. The Texans, they are, the best team in a bad division. So saying that the Bucs had the 19th ranked strength of schedule isn't really saying much when they have some bruisers coming up. 5 teams that they faced this year made the playoffs last year, and 4 of those matchups are on the road. That's going to be tough, especially if you're talking about Buffalo late in the season. And if you're going to take strength of schedule into account, the Bucs have the toughest schedule within their division. Granted, that's because they have to play the winners of the AFC South, the NFC North, and the AFC East. But that's still another hurdle that they have to get over compared to the Falcons, who are 20th, Panthers, who are 28th, and the Saints, who are 31st. It's worth noting, though, that somehow the Giants and the Browns have the two toughest schedules in the NFL, while the Niners and Bills have two of the five easiest schedules. I guess that's the luck of the draw for the divisions that they have to go up against, but that kind of stinks for the Giants and the Browns. But back to the Bucs, let's talk about where they might get some of their nationally televised games. They had 4 primetime games last year, 5 including the postseason, but we're not factoring that in to a schedule prediction show. So 4 primetime games last year, they went 0-4, but their opponents were the Falcons, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Cowboys. Who are the marquee opponents that might get them onto Sunday or Monday Night Football? At home, obviously the Eagles are in contention, but other than that, maybe the 49ers, maybe the Falcons being a sleeper team for a home primetime game, but the national media isn't anywhere close to as high on the Falcons this year compared to this time last year. So I'm going to say that one is unlikely. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Panthers, I don't know. The divisional ones are kind of a toss-up just because they are divisional games. But as far as marquee teams, it's pretty much the Eagles and the 49ers. But on the road, you have the Rams, the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Lions. I'm throwing the Dolphins in there because they're still an exciting team. They still draw eyeballs. They're probably going to end up with 3 or 4 primetime games again this year. So, the NFL could have the Battle of Florida on Sunday or Monday Night Football. We know that the Eagles, Cowboys, Packers, Lions, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens are all going to get the max of 5 primetime games each. It wouldn't surprise me at this point if the Bears also get 5 primetime games because everyone seems to be all over them for the second year in a row, and they're trying to speak Caleb Williams being a good quarterback into existence. But I think the Bucs are primed to wind up with 4 primetime games again this season. They've been to the playoffs 5 straight years. They won the division 4 straight. Everyone loves putting Baker under the bright lights. So I think they wind up with 4, of those night games. Hopefully they actually win one, since I think they're winless in primetime since the arrival of Baker Mayfield to Tampa. But you're not going to find a team in the NFC that has been to the playoffs as many years in a row as the Bucs. It's the Bucs and the Chiefs who have, they're the only teams to make the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons out of each conference. So, that's worth noting. And that's why the Bucs, even though it's a small market, even though they don't have the biggest fan base, that's why we have to look to the opponents to see how the NFL can get the Bucs into primetime, because you have to earn your primetime spots. And the Bucs have more than done that since the 2020 season. Of course, you got primetime games because you had Tom Brady, but the Bucs have continued to win even in the post-Brady era. They've continued to win their division. You earn those primetime spots. So I think they're not going to get the max of 5. I just don't see that on the schedule. But 4 is a really, really solid number for the Bucs this season. But which games will be the ones that end up in prime time? That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Right now, we look poised to have the unthinkable: a New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers Eastern Conference Final. The Oklahoma City Thunder are in a battle with the Denver Nuggets, but they are still the overwhelming favorites now to win the NBA Finals following Boston's collapse and Tatum's injury. but the Thunder are sitting at minus 105, followed by the New York Knicks at plus 500, the Minnesota Timberwolves at plus 600, and the Indiana Pacers at plus 950. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, so who are the Bucs going to square up against in prime time? I think they end up with one Thursday night game, one Sunday night game, 2 Monday night games. That gives us the 4 that we're looking at. The Thursday night game is going to be, as Pat Donovan says, at the Rams in week 13 for Thanksgiving night. For the record, if the Bucs are going to play on Thanksgiving, I would much prefer it be the night game rather than against the Lions in the 12 o'clock game or against the Cowboys in the afternoon game. I have way too much cooking and eating to do early in the day to have to worry about sitting down and watching a football game. By kickoff of the late game, I'm good. I'm going to make a couple of turkey sliders with the leftover dinner rolls and the turkey. I'm going to kick back. I'm going to watch the game, and then I'm going to go live on YouTube afterwards. It's perfect. That said, we've also heard rumblings the last couple of years that the Bucs were going to play on Thanksgiving, but it just hasn't come to fruition. However, I do trust Pat Donovan, and if he is running with this, I'm going to buy in that the source is good enough for him to come out and say that the Bucs and Rams are playing Thanksgiving night. Sunday Night Football, I think that one is going to be on the road in Buffalo. That's going to be a big game this year. Josh Allen, the reigning MVP. Baker had MVP-worthy numbers. You have an awesome quarterback showdown there. These two teams faced off in prime time just a few years ago. There was a blatant pass interference at the end on a Hail Mary that went uncalled, and it wasn't just one pass interference. I mean, like Kate Otten got body slammed by the throat in the end zone on that one. It would be a showdown that I think might make Chris Collinsworth forget for a little while that he isn't watching Patrick Mahomes, and he might even get through the entire broadcast without bringing up Mahomes' name. I love this for a Sunday night showdown. Monday night game number 1, I got to go with the Eagles, man. Like, they can talk about the last 2 times that these teams faced. They can talk about the last time they played each other in Ray J in prime time. Was that playoff dismantling of the Philadelphia Eagles? Troy and Joe would love to call this one again. It's going to be a huge game, and it could be a deciding factor for seeding when the time comes. The Bucs obviously want to keep their streak going of being able to beat the Eagles, and the Eagles want to get that monkey off their back considering how the last couple of matchups went. I know they faced each other last season, and it was a 1 o'clock game, but it was still Fox's game of the week with the number 1 broadcast team on it. If I remember correctly, that was the first Bucs game that Tom Brady called since moving to the booth at Fox. So this is primetime gold right here. It could be a playoff preview. It could be, the tiebreaker when it comes to seeding. There are a lot of things that factor into this. And for whatever reason, Todd Bowles has the Eagles number. He has been able to, figure out how to slow down Jalen Hurts. But the Eagles in their back pocket can talk about, well, we didn't have A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith when we faced in 2024. We were missing receivers during that playoff game at Ray J when the Bucs just absolutely obliterated them. So it would be an absolute, just in the words of good old JR, shout out to those of you who know that is, it would be a slobber knocker. And I would be here for it. That's the kind of game that the NFL wants to put on prime time. And then for my last Monday night pick, I'm going with the Lions. Maybe that's low-hanging fruit, but, this is the 4th time in 3 years that these two teams will play each other. The Lions got the better of the Bucs twice in 2023. They beat them in the creamsicle game. They beat them in the divisional round. Then the Bucs turned around and shocked them in week 2 last year in their house. Now they have their third game at Ford Field in as many years, and it's another game that could have huge playoff implications when it comes to seeding, as well as a potential playoff preview. It could be the NFC Championship preview for all we know, but the Lions were flat out embarrassed at home by the Commanders in the playoffs last year, and then they turn around and they lose their offensive coordinator, they lose their defensive coordinator. We are going to learn a lot about what kind of coach Dan Campbell truly is and what kind of staff he truly had put together. But this is a rivalry, and I mean that word wholeheartedly. This is a rivalry that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This is a carryover from the NFC Central black and blue division days. And if these two teams continue to win their divisions, they're going to keep playing each other every single year. Go back to, the Brady Manning heyday. The Colts and the Patriots played each other every single year, and it became the biggest rivalry in the NFL that wasn't in a division. That's what the Bucs and Lions are on track to become at this point, because it's not going to go away. The Lions are a really good football team, but so are the Bucs, and they are going to continue to be on a collision course each and every season. I think it was a mistake to not have this game in primetime last year, and it definitely lived up to what a primetime game is. So I think there's a correction this time around, and the NFL puts this game a little later into the season and marks it as an ESPN game with Troy and Buck on the call. It's too juicy of a matchup not to. And the best part is that this game can go in two completely different directions. It could be a 45-41 kind of shootout, or it could finish like it was last year at 20-16. I don't think we get one team, lighting up the scoreboard and the other team being terrible. I don't think this is a 45-20 kind of game. This is going to be neck and neck, whether it's an offensive shootout or a defensive battle. And again, that's what the NFL wants. They want those kinds of games on their primetime spots, because those are the games that people love to watch. Regardless, it's going to be entertaining no matter what. And I don't think that ESPN and the NFL don't want to put this one in front of as many eyeballs as humanly possible. So Monday Night Football at the Lions, at home against the Eagles. Sunday Night Football at Buffalo. And then game 3 of the Thanksgiving triple header in Los Angeles are my predictions for the Bucs primetime games. And I'm going to put this out there too. The creamsicle game this year is going to be against the New England Patriots. It's going to be broadcast on Fox, and it's going to be Fox's game of the week, so that Tom Brady is in the booth calling the game, and the Bucs are going to induct him in the Ring of Honor at halftime of that game. And I realize that's a little bold. Might be a little early for Brady to go into the Ring of Honor, but I know there are a lot of Bucs fans that would like to see some of the other players get in first. Players like James Wilder, who I feel is long overdue. But Brady's going in sooner than later, and I think it's just too perfect of a time to induct him when the two teams that he played for are facing one another. And so, you know what? Just go ahead and make that happen. I want to see Tom put on a creamsicle number 12 jersey over his shirt and tie for the pregame or coming out at halftime and in the ceremony. But it's a travesty that we never got to see Brady play in the creamsicle jersey, but at least have him put one on for this one. It's way, way, way too perfect to be able to induct Brady into the ring with the Patriots in the building. Yeah. Plus, now his buddy Mike Vrabel's over there coaching. I'm sure Vrabel will be busy at halftime, but it would be cool for him to be in the building regardless. So come on. It would be fantastic. It would be a little funny. But let's go ahead and make that happen. My final schedule predictions. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a schedule prediction episode of Locked On Bucs, and this is either going to go really well or completely awful. There's no in between. But I am going to go through and I'm going to predict the Bucs' entire schedule. piecing together what we already know, what I talked about at the top of the show, what we believe, we can kind of start to try to maybe put this puzzle together. I figure I have about as good of a shot of getting this exactly correct as the Mavericks had at winning the NBA draft lottery. I'm just putting that out there. All right, week 1. I have the Buccaneers hosting the Panthers. This would be the first time that the Bucs open against a division opponent since the 2020 season when the Bucs traveled to New Orleans and Brady got his first career touchdown as a Buck running the ball in, which was fun to see. Week 2, I have the Bucs hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Week 3, I have them traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. Week 4, that's where I have my first primetime game. That's where I have the Bucs traveling to Buffalo to take on Josh Allen and the Bills on Sunday Night Football. I know I'm trying to kind of speak this into existence, but I wanted to get the Bills into the schedule early. I didn't want the Bucs having to go there in November or December, having to deal with those elements. But yeah, this is going to be the Bills game is one that you're going to want to circle for this season, because that's not only is it going to be a highly entertaining game, but that's also going to be a great litmus test. You know, we know that the Bucs can go toe to toe with the best of the best in the NFC, but can they go toe to toe with the best of the best in the AFC? They did a decent job against the Chiefs last year without Mike, without Chris. They made the score look a lot closer than the game was against the Ravens after losing Mike, and then they lose Chris. But let's see where they stand against the Buffalo Bills, and I think primetime is great for that. Week 5, I have the Bucs back at home taking on the New Orleans Saints and whatever the heck quarterback they're trotting out for that one, whether it's Rattler or Huck or whoever it is. Week 6, I have them back on the road at Seattle to take on the Seahawks. And the Seahawks, again, they're kind of an interesting team. You know, Geno Smith gets traded. They kind of blow everything up. They're bringing in Sam Darnold to be the quarterback, and it's just kind of all over the place. I don't really know what to expect out of the Seahawks this year. They're either going to be absolutely terrible or they're going to be battling for like a wild card spot all season long, where there's going to be lots of ebbs and flows throughout their year. Week 7, I have the Bucs on the road again, taking on the Carolina Panthers. So they get rid of the Panthers within the first 7 weeks. Both of those matchups done, finished. That's going to be a huge one. I thought the Panthers, don't sleep on them, guys. I'm telling you now, in May, don't sleep on the Panthers. They are going to be better than they were last year. And last year, they gave the Bucs some trouble. Week 8, I have a third consecutive road game, and that's when the Bucs are going to be under the bright lights on ESPN at Ford Field, taking on the Lions. This is going to be a huge, huge game. Again, big playoff implications. Could be a tiebreaker. Could be a play for seeding. Could be. This is a must win. Outside of the division games, this Lions game is a must win. So it makes me a little nervous that I think this one's going to be in primetime, just because the Bucs haven't won a regular season primetime game over the last 2 years. They won the playoff primetime game against the Eagles, lost the playoff primetime game against the Commanders. But they got to get the night game nonsense figured out there in Tampa, and they're definitely going to have to show up to face the Lions. Week 9, I got the Bucs back at home taking on the Falcons for the first time. Week 10 against the Patriots. That is the creamsicle game. That is Brady going into the Ring of Honor. And remember, the Bucs can wear their creamsicles more than once this year. I think we're going to get the creamsicles one time, and we're going to get the pewter jerseys at least one time. I don't know why they skipped it last year, because they wore their pewter and their creamsicle in 2023. They wore the creamsicle at home against Detroit, and then they wore their pewter uniforms at Indianapolis Thanksgiving weekend. So I don't know why they didn't wear their pewter again last year, but I think that makes a comeback this year. I can't wait for it, because those jerseys are just so, so pretty. Week 11, I have the Bucs with their third straight home game. So 3 straight on the road. Now they got 3 straight at home. They're taking on the Arizona Cardinals in week 11. Week 12, that's the bye week. We're good. Bye week. No worries. And that gives them a little extra rest before they have to take on the Rams in week 13 on Thanksgiving night in prime time, heading out to Los Angeles. That would be, honestly, that would be perfect to have that bye leading into the Thanksgiving game. I'm all about that. Week 14, they host the New York Jets. That should be an easy win. I would hope that would be an easy win. Week 15, their final primetime game. That is when they are going to host the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jahad Campbell, who I was big on, as you all know, leading up to the draft. They all come to town. That's every bit as important as the Lions game. When you're ranking the importance of these games, sorry, my dog is making a bunch of noise. When you're ranking these non-divisional games in order of importance, Eagles and Lions are at the top of the list. And there is not a close second. The Bucs can lose to the Bills. You know, if you're going to choose a primetime game for them to lose to the Bills. Because the Eagles, the Lions, the Rams, those are all must-wins. Those are all playoff caliber teams. We expect the Eagles and Lions to win their divisions again this year. I would expect the Rams to win their division because the NFC West is kind of a hot mess. But those are the games that matter. Those are the ones that are important, where you have to come away with those wins because your playoff life could be on the line. It could be the difference between a 1 seed and a 5 seed. It could be the difference between hosting the Eagles or hosting the Lions or having to go on the road and play those in front of the opposing fans. You don't want to go to Philadelphia in the playoffs and deal with those fans in that weather. You don't want to go inside Ford Field and deal with that noise. It is deafening. So, got to beat the Eagles, got to beat the Lions, got to beat the Rams, got to handle your division. The rest of it will work itself out. But those are the games that are going to be the most vital. Week 16, I have the Bucs traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Who knows where they're going to be at that point? They're either going to be a surprise team in the AFC and have a huge bounce back from last year, and Tyreek is going to be doing Tyreek things, and Achan's going to be doing Achan things, or Tua could be knocked out with another concussion, and the whole thing could have gone off the rails. Week 17, I have the Bucs traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. So that would mean that, you know, they play the Saints in week 5. Don't see them again until week 17. And yes, I have the Bucs ending this season with a 3-game road trip because they're going to finish things out at Atlanta against the Falcons. And that could be for the division. That could be, you know, playoff, you know, win and you're in the playoffs, lose and you're sitting at home. There could be major, major implications in that one. So overall, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how the schedule actually does shake out. We'll see if I'm right about my primetime predictions, about my creamsicle prediction. If you guys have any predictions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. But that is going to do it for this episode. Coming up tomorrow, I will be joined by Evan Klosky. Plenty to talk about regarding some of the defensive coaches that were available to the media on Tuesday, as well as some of Evan's schedule predictions. And then don't forget, I'm going live Wednesday night after the schedule release. We're going to react to all of it. We're going to talk about the easiest stretches, the toughest stretches, the primetime matchups. Maybe we'll go through and we'll do a win-loss prediction all the way down. But until then, please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.